Guys, we're going to get started a few minutes after the line that's outside comes in, so bear with us. Thanks for coming.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This will be a completely full session, so if you could please move in and leave no empty chairs between you, be kind to your neighbor, get to know them. We are going to hold for just a couple minutes because there's a long line out there, but we'd like to make every seat available, so really appreciate your help with this and really enjoyed this afternoon's presentation. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this will be a full session, so if you could move in towards the center and provide seating for the additional attendees that are entering the room, that would be great. Thank you very much. We'll be starting momentarily.
Sorry, keep talking for a minute. People are still filtering in. How's everyone doing? Who here is first time to an AWS Summit? Wow, awesome. How many of you have I met before or worked with before? I feel like there's a lot of my friends in the audience. Wave at me. Hi, guys. Good to see you. Hey, Ron. How you doing? Hi. Peanut Gallery, you guys can move up front. There's nothing to throw. I think they took away all your tomatoes, so. Glad you guys are here. We're going to go ahead and get started, even though people are filtering in. I just want to give the people who got in line on time a benefit of getting in line on time, right? So. Thanks for coming, and I apologize that my session is right after lunch, so we're going to take a break right in between and have you stand up and do some jumping jacks. Is that all right? Okay. So let's get started. Make sure our remote is working here. It's on the screen, but not up here, guys. I can't do anything without slides, so. Thank you. Guys, thanks for coming. My name is Benjamin Andrew. Yes, it's Benjamin. People call me, ask me if they can introduce themselves, if they can call me Ben, and I say, no, it's Benjamin. Why? Because that's the name my mom gave me. So anyway, now you know. Welcome. Thanks for being here, and I appreciate the attendance, and I hope that the content is what you're looking for. And if not, let's talk afterwards. I do have some homework for you. And that is, we'll cover this in a little bit, but there's one piece of information that I need from you as we help customers as they make the transition to the cloud in some cases, or as they expand to the cloud. It's interesting to me to understand what you guys are trying to do. What is your current thing that you're building, and what guidance are you looking for as it relates to building applications on AWS or migrating applications or data or users, building things on AWS? What are you doing, and what guidance, what applications can help that you're looking for to help you with that process outside of AWS native services? So if you weren't aware, this session is hosted by Amazon Marketplace or AWS Marketplace. AWS Marketplace is a catalog of software from third-party vendors, very similar to Amazon.com, although we don't sell diapers, at least yet. And so it's a place for you as a customer to be able to buy software and use in AWS, also use on-premise and in other places, and pay for it in the same way that you pay for services on AWS. So you're paying as you go. You're paying based on your usage. Think of it like a water faucet. You don't pay for the water faucet, you pay for the water that comes through the faucet. So the idea is that we work with all the software vendors around the world to help them make the transition to cloud-native ways of selling software. So we look at how are you selling your software today, and we say, well, how are your customers buying it? And as we move into hybrid and cloud, what might be a better way for you to position your software and make it easier for customers? And how can we help you then? So we provide services such as a metering service to do a billing for them, such as support services, such as deployment services. We do a lot of different services that help software companies to make their software easier for you as a cloud customer to be able to use. So Marketplace is the team that I work in, and I get the opportunity to work with all of the security vendors. If there's a security vendor that you've talked to, or that you know of. I've probably talked to them. I've had the opportunity to spend time with them to understand what problems they're solving and what their goals are as it relates to their future as they move into the cloud. So I enjoy that, and because of that opportunity and my vantage point, I get the opportunity to listen to every vendor from startups to large enterprises, from network security all the way through to endpoint, application security, data security, and everything in between, including vendors that are looking at Lambda and securing API gateway and containers. So everything in between. I enjoy that part of my job because I get to learn lots. I came from McAfee. I spent 15 years there in a ProServe and product management capability. But my skill set was very limited to only to the products that McAfee offered. So now coming here for the last almost 3 years, I've had the opportunity to learn a lot, and I really enjoy that. But what do I hear from customers? I'm going to talk a little bit about that. From the marketplace standpoint, what are we hearing? How is the marketplace growing? We're going to talk about what is the AWS Marketplace, how does it work, and if you guys are using it, great. I'd love to hear some feedback. The topic of today's discussion is security and compliance, so compliance and cloud security, specifically for regulated environments. How many of you guys are in a regulated environment today, either healthcare, financial services, public sector, or something maybe like law enforcement, something like that? So we're definitely going to spend some time on that, and we're going to talk about a tool. I'll provide you guys with access to a tool that's going to help you map the different control framework that you might need to comply with down to, at a control level, down to tools that are available in Marketplace that are mapped to the controls. So I'm going to show you that. It's a pretty cool tool that I helped a vendor develop. How many of you guys have heard about or have been concerned about ransomware in your environment? We're going to talk about that. We've got a portal that we worked with McAfee and Kaspersky and Europol and the Dutch police to put together to provide access to decryption keys without having to pay the criminals. So I want to show you that. That's pretty exciting. So let's go ahead and talk about customers. Everything with Amazon starts with the customer and works backward from there. If you want to, as vendors, when I talk to vendors and they say, hey, how much money am I going to make selling on AWS Marketplace? I ask the first question, what problems are you solving for the customer? Because it's not just about taking old technology that was designed for an old data center and bringing it onto the marketplace and expecting to make money. It's all about what are you doing to help guide the customer? What are you helping them with? What projects are you helping them with? How are you helping them make the change as they shift, as they do a digital transformation to the cloud? So a lot of challenges that we hear from customers are things like software entitlements, having to prepay and not knowing what their usage is going to be. If you think about the AWS customer and the common place they start, it's really with testing out applications. One of the value props of AWS is that customers can take an idea and they can grab some resources from AWS in a really short amount of time, and they can test out whether the idea is going to work without really a lot of upfront cost. Matter of fact, little to no upfront cost. So we want to take vendors and help them make that transition to think about what is a typical AWS customer starting with, and you don't want to penalize them where they got to buy an expensive appliance up front to test out a small application. You want to make it as easy as possible for them and charge based on usage with a free trial and those types of things. So we want to support the rapid innovation of deployment and building that our AWS customers are doing. So we're helping the vendors with that as they make that shift. Complex agreement management. How much time do you as a customer spend negotiating terms and conditions with a vendor? I don't know, throw some numbers at me. 3 months, 6 months, a year? And the red line document ends up being the same as the last customer that they could have just started with. So why? I don't know. Maybe lawyers need good paychecks. Maybe that's all it is. I don't know. But as a customer, what's your benefit? I don't see a lot of benefits. So we've spent some time in that space to create an enterprise contract, which I'll highlight. But an enterprise contract is a single set of terms that we spent 6 months with the top 25 customers and partners that we work with in Marketplace to negotiate on a single set of terms and conditions that is actually more favorable to the customer, shocker, AWS. But the benefit is that you, as a customer, if you're using enterprise contract buying in Marketplace, if the vendor is supporting it, and most want to be in it, you don't have to negotiate anymore. So it's literally, are you using enterprise contract? Yes, I'm done. Literally, that's how long the negotiation can take. It's amazing. And so we're already starting to see customers buying that way. And the customers are coming to the vendors saying, hey, I would like to buy using the enterprise contract in Marketplace, which, by the way, will be publicly launched at the London Summit. We're still in preview. But customers are saying, hey, vendor, I heard about this thing at AWS reInvent, and I want to use that. So do you guys support that? And they're like, oh, well, yeah, we're thinking about it. Well, yeah, now we're really going to think about it. Now we're going to go do it. So that's a way to smooth out the process of legal, to reduce that friction, to simplify, streamline the purchasing process. There's a lot of out-of-date procurement mechanisms. Let me give you an example. So if you, when I first came to take the McAfee product line to AWS before I was hired at Marketplace, we were bringing the ePolicy Orchestrator, the McAfee management security management platform to Marketplace, and we wanted to be able to sell it to customers, but it was a management console running on a virtual appliance, and customers were not used to paying for the endpoints. They were used to just paying, they were not used to paying for the server that managed the endpoints. They were used to paying just the number of endpoints. But Marketplace didn't have a way to do that. They just had bundles, like, well, 1 to 25, it's this price per hour. And it was just a really weird experience. It didn't make a lot of sense. So AWS Marketplace developed a metering service, Amazon Marketplace metering service, which is an API that allows us to meter software based on usage for any metric. So you could measure based on number of protected hosts. You could measure on amount of bandwidth or data throughput or number of users, number of AWS accounts, whatever you want to measure it on as a vendor, you can now use this metering service. The benefit as a customer is they're only paying when that EC2 instance is running or when data is actually going through that security vendor's tool. So again, it supports the innovation side of why customers use AWS, because they don't want to have to pay until they're actually using. But it also simplifies it for the vendor. The vendor, think about startup companies who only have a small number of employees. They don't want to take the time building a billing engine. So it's another example of AWS builds tools and APIs and services that take away the undifferentiated heavy lifting from a customer. We do the same thing with vendors. That's another example. So no single approved catalog of software in place. Like what if you want to give customers access to all the software in Marketplace, which we'll talk about the numbers in a minute. There are 1,280 vendors with over 4,200 product listings, and I think our number of active customers just went up to 170,000 active customers buying out of Marketplace every month. So if the customer wants access to all of those different applications, but maybe you want to filter it down and you want to, as an IT security policy, you want to limit it to just a subset of those vendors. So Service Catalog is a sister service to Marketplace that allows you to specify which applications the customer can use, employees within your environment, without worrying about them trying other software that maybe you don't have an agreement on or something like that. So it's a way of monitoring and managing that usage. And then compliance and hybrid cloud computing is another challenge customers are asking for, and they want to know what AWS third-party vendors' products selling out of Marketplace, which ones will map to the products that I have, the controls that I have to comply with for HIPAA or for PCI or for SOX or whatever. So I'll show you a tool later that we've worked with a partner to build, and there's some future there that we'd like to bring that into Marketplace. How many of you guys are buying out of AWS Marketplace today? All right. So that's about proportionate to the number of AWS customers. There's millions of active AWS customers, but there's about 170,000 buying out of Marketplace. And we want to continue to add value to make it interesting for you. The benefits as a customer buying out of Marketplace is you can actually, all the software that you buy out of Marketplace is added to your AWS bill. So it can then be passed down to the department that's using it. And we've already talked quite a bit about the way that it's priced. You can also do upfront pricing. You can negotiate a price with a vendor. We call that private offers. So if you guys are looking at Marketplace and you're buying and using for a while and you're like, hey, our usage is getting pretty high. There's got to be a way for us to negotiate. Please reach out to the vendor and say, hey, I'd like to do a private offer. And they can create that for you. What they do is they actually negotiate a price with you, and if there's custom terms, you can do that as well or use the enterprise contract. But you guys can negotiate the price. You can use a channel partner. If you want to have a channel partner in the transaction as well, that's fine. We support that. And we actually help pay the channel partner as well because they're giving you guidance and recommendations. But you can actually then, the vendor can create a private offer for you, and they will whitelist it to your AWS account, and they will send you a private URL. And when you click on that, it'll take you to a private page that only shows you that price for that product. So this is fairly new, but it works really well. And it can support a utility model, price per number of servers or per whatever, protected hosts, or you can also support an upfront payment or monthly payments. So we've done a lot of engineering to support a lot of different buying behaviors. But Marketplace really is a place for you long term. We see this as the Amazon.com of software. It is the world's procurement place for all software. Customers can buy software in AWS Marketplace and they can use it anywhere. So we have vendors, and I'll highlight a few throughout my talk, but Trend Micro is an example, and they're actually supporting usage of their deep security on AWS Marketplace, but they're also allowing customers that are using it on-premise or even using it on other cloud platforms to then send all the metering records through to our metering service API, and we're actually billing for software running on other platforms, running on-premise. And why is that a nice thing for you? Because you don't have to procure for your on-premise in one transaction and for your usage on AWS in another transaction. And then if you're dabbling with other cloud platforms, you don't have to buy there as well. You can just buy once, and your usage doesn't matter where it is because it's all being metered and collected and sent to our metering record, our metering service. So that's another way that, and CrowdStrike actually launched recently their EDR solution, and they're leveraging the metering service as well, but they're supporting both on AWS and off AWS. So we call it on cloud and off cloud or something like that. No, I'm making that up. But the idea is that some vendors are supporting on-premise and other clouds and AWS. Some are just supporting AWS and other clouds. But the idea is that we're trying to make it easier for you as a buyer to reduce the number of transactions that you have to do. So AWS Marketplace is deployed in 17 regions around the world. That needs to be updated. And the latest number is 170,000 active customers. We measure usage of software that is running on Amazon machine images out of Marketplace. We measure it based upon the number of EC2 hours running software purchased out of Marketplace. When we started measuring this was in August of 2015. We had 87 million hours of software running on EC2 that started in Marketplace. And now that number from January, that's a stat from January, 480 million. So it's growing quite a bit. How many of you guys are familiar with the shared responsibility model? Does it make sense to you? So I would encourage you, if you have questions on this, to spend some time with a AWS solution architect, because we can go into specifics at a service level even as to what is AWS's responsibility in security, which is our number one priority, and what is your responsibility as a customer. Any breach you see that has to do with AWS is typically because the customer did not secure their data or their application or their users. So we want to make sure to educate you properly so that you're using solutions out of AWS Marketplace to protect the things that are important to you, such as your reputation, such as your AWS credentials, such as your keys. We're building services in AWS to help provide you with information when you are exposing critical data to the world. Maybe you have your AWS keys sitting in an S3 bucket that's open to the world. By the way, S3 by default is closed public, so you would have had to open it. So we're trying to provide information to make it easier for you to be aware, but ultimately the solutions in Marketplace are here to help you with your portion of the shared responsibility model. AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud itself, the platform, from the hypervisor all the way on down to the physical servers, the physical security of the data centers themselves. but your responsibility is your data, your applications, your users. And so we have tools available to help you with that. And there's a lot of different categories of security. Again, to talk today is security, but we also sell a lot of other types of software in Marketplace, including networking, storage, database, media, BI, DevOps, just to name a few. But in security, there's a lot of different types of security solutions available. And the reason that I've highlighted these vendors specifically is because these vendors have spent time going through what we refer to as our AWS Security Competency Program. And a competency program is designed to ensure that a vendor's solutions are easy to use and they're leveraging AWS services, in a sense built for the cloud. Maybe they didn't start as a vendor that was built on the cloud. They weren't a born-in-the-cloud vendor, but they've made the transition. They've had design reviews from our solution architects, very detailed, to go through every part of their solution to make sure that it runs well in your environment in AWS. This is all available on the web, on Amazon, on AWS's website. If you just search for AWS Security Competency, you'll find this and many more. There's, I think, 27 products that have gone through the security competency out of over 620 in Marketplace. So again, not all of them, just a small number, but we spend a lot of time with these vendors, most of these vendors, and the ones on the bottom row are, also vendors that are either in process of competency or they're also competency certified, and I couldn't fit them on the slide. So pay attention to these, and we're going to highlight a few as we go through. I want to talk about compliance, though, which is the reason for the topic today, and I want to spend a little bit of time on this because that's of interest. We realize that customers have business drivers that cause them to either be prevented from using AWS services or enable them to use AWS services. So we want to provide as much information as possible to give you the data that you need. And I spent some time at reInvent with a customer, Change Healthcare, and we spent some time doing a session there, similar topic. And I want to talk about their journey to the cloud and some guidance that we want to be able to give you. And if you guys are starting to fall asleep, just nudge the neighbor next to you. I could do a tap dance, but I don't have any hardwood up here, so help me out. The journey to the cloud, and it may be similar to yours, is that you start with a lot of different teams using different services, playing around, learning, taking classes, and building different applications. But over time, the usage will continue to grow to the point that you need to have a plan. You need to put together what we call a cloud center of excellence. And this is really where you have executive sponsorship. You realize, hey, this is an industry shift that we should get around. We should put some processes in place. We should automate. And why do you automate? It's typically to remove the human error from the equation. You want to put systems in place, and AWS makes it really easy to do that. But the example that I want to highlight here in this example here is the process that a healthcare vendor wanted to go through, is to build their cloud center of excellence so that they could have teams within their organization that were responsible for certain things that they would repeat. And we've got some content that we can provide you as well around these things, and you may see some examples of this throughout my talk, but DevSecOps, how many of you guys have heard of that? So does anybody know what DevSecOps is? Please tell me what it is so that I can talk about it. No. DevSecOps is really putting security in every part of the DevOps process for the purposes of automation, for the purposes of ensuring compliance, so that you don't have to manually inspect your environment, but you can use tools to inspect your environments. And there's tools on the market that we can highlight throughout this process as well. AWS provides a number of services that can provide you with many of the capabilities, but we want to talk a little bit about additional third-party services that can help you through this process. So this is just one example of a cloud center of excellence creating shared services on the right-hand side that were in an automated fashion so that when a customer needed an application or to grow or to move an application. All they did is reach out to the cloud team and say, hey, we're building this. The cloud team said, that's all right, we've already automated that. Here, use this building block, use this template. And it created a more standard way of leveraging cloud services, leveraging AWS solution architects that came in and did design reviews and said, hey, you guys are doing some interesting things, but you're spending a lot of money on EC2. You might consider Lambda. You could save a lot of money. It's all event-based. You only pay for the events that you're using. So the idea behind a cloud-first approach is that you leverage the managed services and you actually attempt to learn what are the new ways of doing things. You send people in your organization to AWS classes. You get them AWS trained and certified. The vendors are doing this. The benefit to you is then you can apply the principle of least privilege and secure by design to every part of the DevOps process. So if you guys are building an Amazon machine image template that you're going to use for every application that you run in AWS, or maybe you're doing a CI/CD pipeline and you want to add security to that and automation to that, the idea is to learn about what is infrastructure as code, what is security by design, and I'm not going to answer these questions today. I'm more just teasing you with this information exists. We have teams within AWS, both on the SA side, solution architects, also in professional services, that can teach you about infrastructure as code. They can teach you how to automate. They can teach you how to apply security as part of your design. But really, DevSecOps is not just security in operations, but it's in the development process. So you need to think about putting security in the very first part of that. And how is the question, but it does often depend on what you're trying to do. So we want to first make the decision as a company that you're going to establish a cloud-first and security by design methodology. And then if you want help doing that, there's security vendors that we work with that they're consulting partners, such as Slalom, such as RainCloud, such as there's several of them that we could recommend to you. But in the same way that the security vendors have gone through a competency program to validate their solution, the consulting partners have also gone through a competency program as well. So on the Amazon Partner Network, you can search for consulting partners that have gone through that program, and they can give you guidance along all of these steps of the way. Or, of course, you can learn it yourself as well. So let me give you one example of a secure AMI factory. And again, there are literally 100 ways to do this. So that's my caveat that this is not the only way. This is just one. But I'll explain by pictures. You can buy solutions out of Marketplace that can help you with each step of the build, validate, approve, and distribute process. But just to show you some pictures, you would start with a base AMI. Where would you get that AMI? You may have your own already, or you may be that you need to comply with a given regulation. So you might want to use an AMI that comes from Anisian that's available on Marketplace. They have the PCI-enabled AMIs. Or you may want to buy a CIS benchmark AMI, such as Linux, any distro of Linux, any distro of Windows. You can get those on Marketplace as well. But if you start with an AMI that's clean, an approved CIS benchmark is a good place to start. Or you can use Amazon Linux or CentOS. There's so many options. But the idea is to start with a approved AMI and then build security into it. And as you're doing the build process, you want to think about ensuring that it's a clean system. So you want to put an endpoint agent within it. And again, there's several that we recommend. I've talked about CrowdStrike. I've talked about Trend Micro, Symantec, Cloud Workload Protection. McAfee now has Cloud Workload Protection available in Marketplace, metered as well. I'm excited to hear about that because I came from McAfee. But anyway, you've got a lot of options for endpoint and EDR that you want to put into the agent, into the AMI. You also want to consider file integrity monitoring. So Cloud Passage is a good example of a solution that offers some capability in both the endpoint protection as well as vulnerability analysis, as well as file integrity monitoring. So you want to ensure that no changes are made to the AMI throughout the process of building it. Then there's some, again, DevOps tools like Ansible, Jenkins. There's other tools like Chef and Puppet that are available in Marketplace that you can use to automate and then deploy build these playbooks for deployment. The importance of running a vulnerability analysis scan against this is critical, especially because you're making updates, you're making changes, and I got some eyes closed over here. Wake up, guys. Come on, work with me. I know I'm not dancing, but help me out. So vulnerability analysis tools are available in Marketplace. There's a few that you may have heard of. Rapid7, Qualys, Tenable. There's also Cloud Passage. The ones that we focus on today are Cloud Passage because they're available as a metered price. They're available in Marketplace with SaaS prepay, but then the other ones are in process. So Rapid7 is in process. We're working with Qualys as well and Tenable. But the idea is to take advantage of a solution that's gone through the security competency designed for AWS. Do your vulnerability analysis scan. You can use Amazon Inspector as well. And then there's, again, I'm not going to dive into the how to do this. I'm just highlighting vendors that are available in Marketplace to help you through the process of one example of a DevSecOps tool, and that would be a secure AMI factory. As you're doing distribution then, there's a way then to ensure that you're deploying it to the right accounts, and there's tools that we can provide automation around that as well. Again, just trying to highlight just one example, but there's the goal here with Marketplace is we want to be able, and back to your homework assignment, is we want to be able to provide you with guidance on if you're doing any of these use cases and you're coming to us to the Marketplace and you're looking at a whole lot of vendors and you're saying, which vendor should I use? Help me understand which ones are designed for cloud, which ones are well architected. We're going to be putting badging there on the products as well. But tell us what those use cases are so that we can write guidance on the vendors that we are aware of that are well architected, that are working with AWS, that work well with the other vendors, that we can then recommend to you. So I'll show you my email address and LinkedIn at the end, but feel free to share that with me because we want to prioritize the most valuable things to you as customers so we're not wasting time documenting detail on something that you're not going to use. Tell us what is important, please. Service Catalog, I mentioned this as well. You can now check in that gold image or that AMI template into Service Catalog and make that deployable through Service Catalog. We have a new feature within Marketplace and Service Catalog as well that is in preview, but it's called the private image build. And the idea is you can take the process that we've just gone through for the AMI factory, and then in that where you're putting an agent, and I'm looking at Jessica from CrowdStrike, so I'll highlight them for a second. If you put the CrowdStrike Falcon agent within the AMI template, because that's available metered through Marketplace, you can actually create that private image, put that up on Service Catalog for your customers, and they can use that and deploy that image, and it's going to meter that usage back to CrowdStrike without you having to just download a image off of the website. You can actually create a private image and use that. So again, it's another way to simplify the process for you so that you're able to use images that you've built using software on Marketplace, metered out of Marketplace, added to your AWS bill. So a lot of improvements that we're making along the way there. So I told you guys we would take a minute and stand up, but I was playing with you. So let's go ahead and talk about mapping security to compliance controls. So have you guys heard of Allgress? Allgress is a tool that they have a compliance vision tool, and they actually look at, they can scan your environment both on-premise and in AWS, and they can tell you if you're compliant with HIPAA or PCI or whatever, and it's a tool that actually auditors use as well. So it's very useful. When I was meeting with them to talk about putting this product in Marketplace, they showed me this cool wheel that had all the controls in it. And I was like, dude, this is really cool. You guys need to consider changing this and making this available as a mapping tool, as a discovery tool for customers who are in some sort of a regulated industry. So what's the cool thing about this? Well, what they did is they took the control frameworks, PCI, HIPAA, NIST, FedRAMP, CGIS, to name a few, and they mapped the products that provide coverage for those controls into the tool. So I'm going to do something that we highly recommend when doing presentations at AWS Summits, and that's do a live demo. So if you go to, I have a shortcut. If you go to the Marketplace and search for Allgress. Oh, is it not? Do I need to switch something up here, guys, to? Ah. There we go. Which means that I can't see it. Awesome. So if you go to AWS Marketplace and type in Allgress, the tool you're looking for is the first one. Regulatory product mapping. So I've already baked it into another oven over here. So when you get to the site, it's not required to create an account, although there is benefit if you do, but for the sake of the demo, log in as guest. All you're doing is you're choosing the standard that you have to comply with. Super simple, one question. So what standard? I'm going to pick on PCI today. There's two tools. My favorite is Explorer. You can look at the other one later. So Explorer gives you the wheel with all the PCI controls. And we all know that compliance is not just software, it's also processes, right? So how you implement the software is important. So scroll down to the bottom, and you want to hide components that are unmapped. In other words, they are processes, not applications. So we're going to hide those from the wheel for a second. Scroll back up. I could look down here, not crick my neck. All right, so there's two ways to play with this tool. The first is scroll down on the side and see all the tools that you're already familiar with. Oh, I already have Fortinet in my environment. Oh, I already have Barracuda Networks. Oh, I already have AWS services. Let's see what AWS services I'm using. So let's scroll down to, this is tricky, guys. I'm also a Mac user, so that combines the problem. So say you're using VPC. So you click VPC, and that highlights the controls that are covered by Amazon VPC. So just as a native AWS user, you're using IAM, EC2 Security Groups. As you highlight things, and I'll scroll back over because the screen is, oops, a bit large. As you highlight, as you click on each service, it highlights, do that again real quick, sorry. It highlights what's covered by that control. Now that's one view. The other component of this is third-party software. So say you're using Alert Logic and you're using Cloud Defender. What do they cover? So just by clicking on their product name, it highlights those services. Now, what if you're like, well, I don't have anything yet, or show me all the tools that cover this control specifically. So you click on any one of the controls, it doesn't matter which one. And then on the right-hand side, it'll highlight all the vendors that cover that. So in this case, we've got Allgress, Anician, AT&T, Turbot. Let's choose another one. So the idea is you just play with it. And if you want to see what detail that control is, just scroll down a little bit. It'll tell you this screen is not formatted well for this size of website. But anyway, the idea is you can eventually fill up the wheel with solutions that provide coverage for you. So you're going to use CIS, you're going to use Cloud Checker, you're going to use any of these. And if you like what you see, you can add it to the cart, and then you can click on the cart when you're done. And you've got a list of all the tools you've selected. And if you expanded out components. It shows you the control, the description, the procedures, the objectives, and the references on every control. And then you can click on Buy. Takes you straight to that marketplace listing. So this is just a way to help you figure out, hey, I have to comply with PCI, I have to comply with FedRAMP. I want to use tools that I already have people trained on or I already own. So show me those things. And the idea is to fill out the wheel. What do you guys think? Is this useful? Do you think you guys would use this? Like, show of hands, somebody would actually go sit down and play with this. Okay. I would love to hear feedback, too, if you find something that you would like a particular vendor to be mapped. Tell me who that is, because I'm the one that feeds the information back to the Algress team to say, hey, we're hearing a lot of requests for this product. So I recommend, feel free to communicate that. And while we're here, before I move this webpage away, I want to talk about ransomware before we run out of time. We got about 10 more minutes. Did I spell that right? Nope. Have you guys seen this before? Have anybody been to RSA or CSA? We talk about this at RSA and CSA as well. So what is this? So this is how many of you guys have had either a family member or yourself personally had your data taken from a ransomware group? I'd like to hear your stories. It'd be cool. So I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but let me just explain for those who don't know what this is. So ransomware is a way of getting money, bottom line, it's money motivated, using a cyber attack where they basically encrypt your entire hard drive if it's just you as an individual, or what's worse is you probably saw the headline last week on how Boeing was infected from WannaCry. So this happens about every month. You'll see a big customer get hit by ransomware. So many critical servers are encrypted, and then they're prompted with a message saying, you need to give us 500 Bitcoin to get access to your data. So what would you do? Like how often, how many times are we all told to back up our systems, but how many of us actually do it, right? There's some backup and recovery solutions available in Marketplace, by the way. Such as, I don't know, Barracuda. Anyway, the idea is there's got to be a way to get out of that situation without paying the criminals. Because what happens when you pay the criminals? They just do more. They do it again, right? So it's kind of it's a cycle. So we worked with McAfee, Kaspersky, and I'll show you the partner page, to create a portal with the following founding partners, to create a portal where victims of ransomware could go get their data back without paying the criminals. So how do we do that? So think of the challenge from law enforcement's perspective. They're getting phone calls from all these victims of ransomware saying, our data is locked, and they're asking us for Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? We don't have any of that. What do I do? Help us. And the law enforcement agencies, pretty big names here, their hands are tied because they don't know where the criminals are. And here are all of the law enforcement agencies that are involved in this campaign. Okay, so originally the original founders though were the ones on top there. So the cybersecurity vendors may have information about where the ransomware groups are at, but they can't do anything about it because they don't have badges. They can't just knock down doors. So the idea was they decided to come together with Europol and the Dutch police, the National Crime Lab of the Netherlands came together with McAfee and with Kaspersky, and they said, we would like to work together. If you guys could tell us where the bad guys are, we'll go knock down their doors. That was as simple as that. So when McAfee came to AWS and said, hey, we would like to host this portal on AWS, I'm like, awesome, sounds good, do it. Like, no, we want you to pay for it. I'm like, oh, okay. That's a different question, no problem. So we decided to support this as a founding partner, and I reached out to Barracuda because I knew that this site was going to get hacked probably every minute, maybe, especially when they would go after another ransomware group. And so we worked together with Barracuda. They put this thing online. We used the AWS WAF for the coarse grain side of the site. And the crypto sheriff part is the interesting part, and this is where you upload any evidence of attack and say, hey, you know, I think I've been attacked by ransomware, I don't know. I'm submitting something to you. I've got a screenshot, I've got a word, I've got something. Submit it to the crypto sheriff. It identifies whether or not this family of ransomware has been taken down. And then literally, you can download the decryption keys. So, I want to highlight a couple stats because it's been pretty cool. If I can get this to work. So the statistics so far, 84 ransomware families with 52 decryption tools available in 29 languages. There's now over 120 partners, including 40 law enforcement agencies. This is the first time in history that U.S. law enforcement is working together with Russian law enforcement on anything. True story. Over 1.6 million visitors from over 180 million countries, and more than, here's the sweet part, more than 35,000 people have retrieved their files for free, saving and preventing criminals from profiting of more than $12 million so far. This launched in July of 2016. So I want you guys to check out No More Ransom and check out the Allgress tool, check out Marketplace, and here's my contact information. Please send me your homework, which is, remind me, is anybody paying attention? What are you working on? What use cases do you want to see guidance from AWS Marketplace about third parties that can support you? It could be as simple as, hey, we're building an application and we want to put an application security solution in place, end-to-end, including identity. Who do we use? Or it can be a full, complex, end-to-end CI/CD pipeline. It could be a data lake. It could be anything that you can think of, and that's why I'm saying it this way, is I really want you guys to flood my inbox with, here's what I'm working on, here's the tools I'm using, is this the right tool? Here's how I'm finding software. Are there other ways to find software? Please use me as a resource, and I'll connect you with other folks on our team. And then don't forget to do the session survey. Before I leave, though, any questions? You guys just urgent to get out to the next session. Was this good? Yeah. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your attendance. And have fun for the rest of the day.